Welcome back to another episode of Titans of Now. Titans is a showcase of ServiceNow personalities that have punched above their weight and elevated the ServiceNow community. Titans of Now is brought to you by me, Robert the Duke Fedoric. If you want to see what I'm up to, check out my website, theduke.digital. Here you'll find all my CJ and the Duke episodes, links to my YouTube content, and my upcoming course, Hired, the definitive guide to profiles that win ServiceNow jobs. For the first time ever, Titans of Now has a special offer you can leverage. For a limited time only, Shiv and the QuickNexus team are offering a free ServiceNow Discovery assessment. Check the description below, and we dive deeper into it at about the 28-minute mark. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Titans of Now. So good to have you here. Today we are talking to a person who's been working in the ServiceNow ecosystem for over a decade, and in that time I have known him as an absolute baller when it comes to CMDB and Discovery. He's saved my hide on a number of occasions in that area. He is the product manager of an app called Discovery Admin, which we're going to get to in the show. But for now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Shiv Vichare. Shiv, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Robert. First of all, very excited, humbled to be on the podcast, and looking forward to a little bit of banter over the next few minutes.
Yeah, no problem, man. And really, it's my pleasure. I'm so glad to have you on here. And I mean, I've been trying for like a year, right? So for me, it's kind of like finally closing that loop. We finally got you on the show. But everybody else has been missing out for a whole year. So we know the protocol. It's the start of the show. So tell us how you got your start with ServiceNow.
Yeah, honestly, like everybody who started in the late 2000s started off as a ServiceNow customer. But the real start that I got was when I actually asked for it. So I asked to be involved in the ServiceNow deployment. And that was a very different time where there was no wiki per se. That was very reliable, if you may. The documentation was very poor, and you had to figure things out on your own. So what ended up happening is that because I specifically asked for that opportunity, there weren't any training dollars available for me to get better with ServiceNow. So I actually took a PTO. I signed up for the ServiceNow admin class, which was a few $1,000s. I hauled over to New York City where the class was, and I really attended that class like I've never attended anything in my life. Really got those foundations in place. And I think once I really took ownership of understanding how the platform worked under the hood, I would say that's when I really got my start with ServiceNow, and it's been just amazing after that.
Now, everybody knows since the intro that you're a master at CMDB and Discovery. Is that where the seed got planted right at the start?
It indirectly got planted, but not until much later in 2016. When we started, we did work on ServiceNow Discovery, and we populated like 3 million CIs when we got things started. And then we spent the next 3 months deleting those 3 million CIs. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
Of course, there was other things on the ServiceNow platform that I also worked on as I dabbled into learning more and more. But the focus on CMDB and Discovery happened much later, after actually my opportunity with Accenture. So sometime in 2016 timeframe, 2015 timeframe, that's when I actually kind of pulled my sleeves up and said, this is what I'm going to focus on. Honestly, it was to save myself from the ever-growing ServiceNow platform. So this was a place where I felt very comfortable in being the best at what I do in the CMDB ServiceNow Discovery space.
Yeah, come to think of it, I think we met in a domain SEP class.
Yes, that is correct.
And
yes,
it was, I think we were talking about, hey, how can we form a business around helping people get apps into the App Store was,
that's
I think,
right.
The foundation of our company. Wow, I can't believe that memory survived
all these years. No, that was absolutely. And the App Store is something we should definitely talk about, because I think it's just magic. The App Store is magic, and I can go on about that, but that's been at least a good many mileage years under our belt after we met.
Actually, yeah, let's go deep on that. So we mentioned at the start, you're this app that you have called Discovery Admin. Is that on the store?
Yes, it is. So we put that on the store, I think, around 2018. And let me go back a little bit, even before talking about just the Discovery Admin app.
Sure.
The ServiceNow platform, I think the transition of joining QuickNexus after Accenture, it all was seeded by the fact that ServiceNow had a platform where you could actually have scoped apps, and the maturity around that. I mean, even with Vivid charts, right? I mean, that's exactly what's happening there. And so what we did was, as we started focusing on ServiceNow Discovery specifically at QuickNexus, we built this to save ourselves from ourselves. To do a great discovery implementation, the implementation, of course, is very important, but the troubleshooting is even more important, because that's how you continue to make sure discovery works as expected. And that just took it drained us because of the sheer number of
Yeah.
logs. And so we started with scripts. I kind of give that Iron Man analogy. We started with just the hammer and the nails and kind of getting everything together. And then once we figured out a few fundamental things, we really were able to, with the power of the App Store, put all of that together in a product that actually now we're using as our flagship product for how we're engaging with customers and supporting them with their ServiceNow Discovery implementation.
Yeah, give me the elevator pitch for what Discovery Admin does.
Sure. So Discovery Admin automatically troubleshoots your ServiceNow Discovery logs without lifting a finger. The expertise required for understanding the logs, figuring out who needs to be resolving the issue, what exactly the issue is, what stuff you can ignore from those hundreds and thousands of logs that are generated when ServiceNow Discovery runs. It requires a multi-skilled experience, which may not be easily available, or folks who have that experience usually do other things, like, maybe they're an architect, or maybe they build on new capabilities on the ServiceNow platform. So there's always that skills gap, which is the hard stuff as well as something that's repeatable, which is what the Discovery Admin app does for us. It solves a problem that's very hard from an expertise standpoint to solve. At the same time, it's very repetitive, and so it's even harder to find the right set of resources to fix that. And like I said, we created this to save us from ourselves because of the sheer number of logs that we had to deal with. And that just matured beautifully into a product that we're actively supporting on the ServiceNow platform.
Yeah, I gotta say too, and I've been dying to have this kind of rant for so long. You ever see the places that are like, oh, we need somebody who is a CMDB owner? And then they always conflate that with a discovery admin. Do you find that often? I mean, I've found it often enough that it became a trope in my mind. And I'm like, you gotta they're two different people.
Yeah, it's a functional and a technical play. It's very different. And while each of them needs to know what the other person is doing, merging them into one person is bad for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I remember at one of the places I worked as an employee, we brought some person on and they were supposed to be the CMDB person, but it's just like after 8 hours a day of that person doing discovery. And it was like, he was excellent at doing the discovery, but it's not the same. Like, where's the M part of CMDB going to come if discovery alone can be a full-time job?
And also I've said this at folks who have said this too, but you don't do incidents without incident management. You don't do changes without change management process. You need that configuration management process to govern the CMDB, and that is a required role within the organization to govern kind of the overall success of the CMDB. But there are these technical tentacles around ServiceNow Discovery, which require a very different hat, if you may, and a very different mindset, kind of rolling up the sleeves versus looking at what you want to do with the CMDB, and those don't gel very well if it's the same person.
Exactly. Yeah. So first of all, staying in the realm of CMDB and discovery, like, I'm not a CMDB person, but when people are asking me for advice on CMDB, I tend to tell them, like, just remember the M part.
Yep.
It's not something you set up, you put the tech behind it, and it just kind of drives itself. The M part is a managerial discipline. So I wonder if you might have any cool insights about the M part of CMDB that people forget. Like, what's a managerial activity of the CMDB?
Yeah, absolutely. So the managerial activity is really the maintenance of it and making sure that there is an ongoing way to maintain the CMDB. So whatever you need to do to make sure that beyond the project, there is still the same amount of attention and love given to your data, I think that goes a very long way. And I also tie it very heavily to processes. So, you have a chair, which is a noun, and you sit on the chair, which is a verb, and the chair is useful if you are verbing the noun, if you're sitting on the chair. The same way the CMDB is great if you have a process, incident, problem, change, catalog, whatever else you have in ServiceNow, who's actually referencing and using the CMDB. So whenever you're looking at the CMDB or approaching the CMDB, look at which processes are going to be using the CMDB and scope your CMDB and the management of the CMDB in service of those processes. And if you just follow this, your scope will significantly reduce. You'll know exactly what you need, and the value that you get is going to be almost immediate. And if you just follow this, it goes a very long way. So that's kind of the fundamentals of the management. And then from a design standpoint, where does the data live in the CMDB? Honestly, there was a time a handful of years ago where it was actually something that we had to figure out. But with the common services data model, especially the version 4.0 that's going to be out shortly, just read that document. It tells you exactly where things should be. It tells you the definitions. It tells you which tables should be populated. It is a no-brainer. So the aspect of prioritizing is now easy because you're catering to your processes. And then the design aspect, definitely leverage the common services data model. And of course, from your infrastructure CIs, WWDD, right? What would discovery do? That is a great way to inform your design decision for the rest of the infrastructure CI. So just with these handful of things, anybody who has or has not worked with the CMDB is very well equipped to at least take the immediate next steps to get control or get that management aspect of it for their CMDB and ServiceNow.
I'm going to assume, like, because you're so good at this and you're so good at the talk, I have to assume there was some desperate lessons learned at some point, right?
Yeah.
So one question I ask all my guests is, can you tell us about a time where your back was against the wall and you weren't sure you were going to make it?
Yeah. So, I'll address it in different ways. The biggest part, I think, especially as a new vendor in the ServiceNow ecosystem and wanting to grow, be known for what you're doing, the biggest challenge we had was getting the handle of the ServiceNow Discovery logs. But before I get there, let's talk about the CMDB. That from a design standpoint, as unique as each of the customers may be, the design is fundamentally the same. And so please don't make the mistake of going too unique or going too custom or deviating from the common services data model. So there was a time where we had to figure out the design and make those recommendations. That was the easy part. The hardest part we had was when we actually ran ServiceNow Discovery and we had to deal with just the sheer number of logs and just the fact that, we could spend hours and hours parsing through those. And it just was something that at the point where we were sacrificing quality for the value that we said we would provide. And I think that's where, like I mentioned before, we built this, or we started with the scripting and figuring out how we can scale that to save ourselves from ourselves and the commitment that we made to the customer. So I think that was a very interesting point in terms of switching over. And then just overall, that kind of the hardest time personally for me is being an expert in ServiceNow. So 2013 timeframe, when I was at Accenture, you walk into the room, you have the Accenture brand, you're like, yep, you know everything about ServiceNow, help us, guide us. To just a couple of years later when you're like, wow, the platform is so big that I don't know everything at all, if anything at all. That was a very interesting time. And so the message here really is that for the folks who are new to the ServiceNow ecosystem, it's a handful of years and you are better than pretty much any veteran out there, because we also carry the baggage with the older ways of approaching ServiceNow. So don't be intimidated if you are new to the platform. Just get good at a part of the platform that you want to focus on, and the sky's the limit.
Yeah, man, I'm so glad you're saying it, because it saves me saying it one more time, which I'll do again. Is that, man, I made a decision ages and ages and ages ago to go wide, and I am finding hard limits to that today. Yep. Like there's whole chunks of the platform where I just nope out of there. CMDB is one of them. Like, Robert, can you teach us about CMDB? No. Go see Shiv. Go see these people, those people, right? And you just can't sustain the depth that matters at a certain width, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. And admitting to the fact that, especially when you've grown up in an ecosystem where in double quotes everything that the platform has to offer, and saying, you know what, that's not me anymore. I think that was an interesting time and a little scary as well. To say, okay, wow, I'm gonna say no to everything else and just focus on a small subset of the platform. That was an interesting time to realize where we are right now. It paid off, so that's a good thing. But it could have gone either ways, and I didn't realize it would be something that I would be so apprehensive about when I made the decision to do that.
Well, I think there's such an anxiety about, if somebody asks me something and I don't know, I don't look like an expert. But it's just, I mean, think about this. If you ask somebody, what do you do for a job? And they say, I'm in construction. Like, we don't necessarily think that they must be able to answer all my plumbing and electrical questions, right? We don't make that assumption. Yes. And likewise for other technologies, like SAP is big enough. What do you mean you're in SAP? There's no context anymore. It's just so big.
Yeah.
Anyways, kudos for you, man, for finding your niche. And I would just ask all my listeners, especially people who are young in their ServiceNow career, like, don't be afraid to go deep. If you like working on something, like, both feet, dive in. And don't ask, well, I don't say don't, but like, the wrong question is, what should I do? The wrong question is which one of these modules is the best? Which ones are
and that
client
you relate to, that you're excited about, and then go crazy, right?
Yeah. Because me,
And
I like,
even
like
the,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No,
I'll let
after you guys. It's your show, bud.
Oh, no, not at all. No, this is for the folks who are hiring, right? The notion of 5 years experience on the ServiceNow platform doesn't really make sense anymore. You have to be specific to a certain
Yep.
module or certain aspect of ServiceNow, and then ask for experience specifically in that space. So the paradigm for even the recruiting aspect or the hiring aspect, that has completely changed as well. And this is, again, for the folks who are recruiting, think about that and be very specific with what you're asking for. You'll get the best resources when you do that.
Oh, testify, brother, testify. It's like, I mean, it's just another interesting consequence of the just absolutely explosive growth, both in terms of market share, but then just explosively wide. Oh, Robert, how'd you go wide? Well, I mean, 13 years ago, there was only two things. There was ITSM and there was custom apps. Maybe there was Discovery too. Three things. There was three things. Now there's like, I've lost track of how many process areas there are.
I'm embarrassed to say that, but I don't even know how many things there are. It's that big.
There's people in the Dev MVP private Slack channel who are like, you know, somebody's like, hey, does anybody know about blah, blah, blah acronym? And somebody's like, what's that mean?
Yep.
Oh, it's a critical piece of the platform that you need to know to get your next certification. It's crazy. It's crazy. But don't be afraid, folks. Don't be afraid. Go wide.
That's really the message.
Yeah.
Is absolutely.
There's dozens, possibly hundreds of niches.
Yes.
And every version, there's just like something else.
Premium. Absolutely.
I love that conversation, man. Thanks for taking us there. Okay, so we talked about a war story. Can you also tell us about like the thing that you're most proud of?
Yeah, I mean, definitely biased here, but I'll kind of trace it back to when I was in my 20s. You know, you're doing, or even in high school, I did do my computer science or whatever. And, you know, you wrote these programs in BASIC or whatever, and you had this banking application, or you had a mini project where you created a little website and it did something like bug tracking or whatever, right? And so you take that, and I was like, it'd be cool to actually have real people use the stuff that we're building, right? And what I love, like what ServiceNow has enabled us to do, and this is just so exciting. I didn't mention the store is magical, is just by allowing the store to be there. I love marketplaces. And so the store really allows for the true creative aspects. If you find a problem, you are an expert in that solution, you can build that solution on the ServiceNow platform. And unlike anything else that's out there, you have direct access to the ServiceNow customers that you would never have access to, and you don't have to worry about availability, security, even transactions. Some of the transactions happen on ServiceNow paper. So the hard part, the ancillary part of running a software business, if you may, on the ServiceNow store is simplified to such an extent that I would actually urge others who are listening to consider that as a serious opportunity for you to build on that. If you have something that you're passionate about, you've seen that problem, it is not hard at all to productize that and put it on the ServiceNow store and potentially have a brand new business start out of just an idea. And I think that part I love it. I'm, of course, experiencing the benefits of it with our app. But forget that. It just tickles me happy. You know, like, wow, this is amazing that there was a time not too long ago where, yes, you wrote stuff and it was a project in class or an assignment. And now there is that aspect of what you've learned in the past that is actually running in like Fortune 50s, Fortune 500 companies, which completely blows me away. And it kind of gives me a big grin on my face every time I think about that. And it's only possible because of what ServiceNow has done as a company. And of course, the exposing the ServiceNow store to the ecosystem, the partner ecosystem to take advantage of.
I gotta agree with you there. I was like within the first cohort of people who put apps on the store. I will say though, as a hedge, the building of the app in some ways is the easier of the parts, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
So before you jump into the store, and by all means, look, but have a business plan first.
Thank you.
Understand you still have to sell it. And being in the store makes it easier when they decide to buy. Because like you said, right, it's like we have all these security questions. You already answered them with ServiceNow. How do we get people on and access? You already answered that on ServiceNow. How do I train people in this new interface? They already know it's ServiceNow. It greases those wheels, but it doesn't Like the doors aren't open. You still have to go to those customers and open the door.
No, I couldn't agree more, and thank you for calling that out. I mean, that holds true for any opportunity or any business. So if I have to rephrase that, and thank you for calling me out on that, is that if you were planning to build a solution without the ServiceNow platform, you would have to do what you just said and the 10 or 15 or 50 things that the ServiceNow platform already does for you. And so in that comparison, it is a no-brainer to be on the ServiceNow platform. But I couldn't emphasize or reiterate what Robert has said, is you have to find a problem that customers associate with and, of course, are willing to pay for. As simple as that.
Yep. It's still money, right? So you still got to convince them to buy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you could change one thing about the ServiceNow ecosystem or the product, what would it be?
Yeah. This is an interesting question because there's one thing is changing that I do not want to change, and I want to change the fact that I don't want to change that. That's even an answer. Let me elaborate on that. So, 2014, 2015, 2016, there was a large number of partners as a part of the ecosystem, fairly small companies. The owners or the founders were either just, brand new. They had no experience, but they decided to come together and get this off the ground. And QuickNexus benefited tremendously from that. We were introduced, we were given so many opportunities by other partners to kind of take that first step in the ecosystem. What I'm seeing right now is happening is that there is a lot of consolidation of these partners, and the stakes are getting a lot heavier, or the stakes are getting more and more for every customer, for every account. And while the fundamental ecosystem is very helpful and very supportive, and you can get your answers and all of those things, my focus and my concern is around this group of people or that one person who wants to start something net new, right? A completely innovative idea, which in the larger companies or the larger partners would be just shot down, which is only possible in that smaller space when you're a small team and it's justifiable in that smaller space. I really hope that the opportunity that we received a handful of years ago to build on an idea and kind of build on that concept is still entertained by the larger partners and the consolidation that's happening in the ecosystem. Because the real win is when a exponential leap is made in the ecosystem by somebody who just believes in their idea and does the kind of the grunt work to take it from concept to actually having it ready and a viable solution. I'm really hoping that for folks who are in the position to entertain or provide opportunities to these potential new partners or these new teams, do give them a meeting like the ones we received when we were starting off. Do give them a handshake, hear them out and evaluate them and give them the opportunities. I really hope that the consolidation and just the fact that the ecosystem and the partners are getting so large and the opportunities are getting so large, we don't lose that nascent entrepreneurship or that, hey, this is what I want to do and I want to get this off the ground. I really hope we don't lose that talent and that momentum that was currently there. I really hope that continues. So that's really what I wish doesn't change, and I wish that continues as a part of the ServiceNow ecosystem and the ServiceNow platform.
I have to agree, and I think the consolidation is going to open up space in some circumstances because we just talked about how wide you have to go. And so to some extent, it's a very different equation for a giant partner to quote unquote cover ServiceNow today as it was yesterday. True. Right? Because there's only ITSM and apps, but now we've got HR and ITBM. And so I think as more and more consolidation happens, there's fertile ground for small partners to come in and say, listen, we don't care about anything else but HR.
Yep.
And so don't go to a huge vendor hoping that their 2 HR people are available that week or that month. Right? And you got to carry all their BAs, their PMs, and all that weight. Just come in with the ultra refined talent, the ultra specialized talent, and get this done right the first time. I think that has been fertile ground for a while, but the more consolidation there is, I think the things we're going to see less of is small and medium-sized generalists.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Yes. You have to focus. That's definitely it. And so what I've seen is the larger partners, and even with the aggregation and the acquisitions, they are having verticals of centers of excellence within their organizations that are trying to mimic that. And what I guess where my comment came from is that sometimes Yeah, sure, a partner that's just focused on a very small part of ServiceNow will excel, but will they excel enough for the customer to not go with the aggregated larger partner, right? And that gap, I feel, is reducing significantly, because before, when there were a large number of small partners, it was very obvious. The small partner just couldn't do it. It's very simple. And the inclination to ask for external help was more, versus now, yeah, you can potentially hire, you can potentially have somebody else cross-train while you're closing, the opportunity, and build forward from there. So I feel there's a slight change in dynamic. I don't imply that it's completely gone, but I don't want that to change. Or my intention of saying this is that for the folks who are established in the ecosystem, the veterans, continue to provide opportunities to these focused vendors, focused partners, even focused individuals who can completely do something that as a larger organization you could never do, because it's those innovative things that would completely take our ecosystem and everything we can do on the ServiceNow platform to the absolute next level. So that was really the intent of it, is to just keep that awareness open that things are changing. And let's make sure we don't lose the fact that we have to keep the channels open for anything new, and make sure we welcome that, even though it on the surface may not make sense. So that was kind of the intent of the comment. And what I'm seeing a little bit kind of shift, especially over the last few years, where there's just so much of activity and so much of mergers within the ServiceNow ecosystem.
I'm right there with you. All right, Shiv, I understand you have a special offer to the Duke's audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is a little bit about what we can do for the larger community. So what we're doing is we're offering, for a limited time, free ServiceNow Discovery assessments leveraging our Discovery admin app. And the process is really simple. We'll have the link in the description below, and either myself or somebody from my team will be happy to help you with that.
Thank you so much for that. And everybody, I encourage you to do that quickly, as it is a limited offer. Shiv, final word.
So the final word. So Robert, thank you for having me. This has been an absolute blast. I love what you're doing for the ServiceNow community. And I really hope in the very near future, we get to actually meet in person. So fingers crossed on that. And again, thank you everybody for being a part of our conversation.
All right, Shiv, thanks so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure. Do you want your message in front of the best ServiceNow admins, developers, architects, and product owners in the business? Want a conversation about your ServiceNow strategy and architecture? You can reach me via my website at www.theduke.digital. If you want to contribute to high-frequency, high-quality ServiceNow content, all you need to do is
feed the algorithm
with likes, shares, and comments. Thanks for watching.